Hi, everyone. It's your friend Amy HR, and welcome to the Don't Talk to HR podcast. This week, I want to do something a little bit different. Next week, we will have another episode with my writing partner, Niru Mehta, but this week, I want to talk to you just one-on-one. And what I want to talk to you about is the topic of burnout and vulnerability. Now, stay with me on this. Many of you know Brene Brown, and she has a lot of research that she's done on the topic of vulnerability and how you can bring that to the table as a leader. I actually found that to be quite game changing when I was first introduced to her original TED Talk about how, as a leader, you can show up and be vulnerable and be real. And it actually gets people to engage with you more and to want to help and want to follow you. If you just stand up there and say, things aren't going well, or I have a problem, can you jump on board and help me out? And despite the fact that I know this instinctually and I've employed it in my career over the years, I have found that that is something that as an executive, really the reality is it gets pushed down. And we find ourselves in a position where we have to be on all the time, right? You have to be, seem like you have your act together and that you're strong and that you've got all the answers and you're the expert in the room. You never want to be seen as being troubled or needing help in any way. It's just sort of part of the persona of an executive. And it can be part of the persona of anyone in today's work environment. You don't have to be an executive to have that persona. And this is the same for men and women. As a matter of fact, I've seen a lot of men really struggle with showing that vulnerability because it's just, let's face it, vulnerability is not in a lot of men's vocabulary. And it's unfortunate because I have found that teams are very likely to jump behind you and help out when you express vulnerability. When you say, "Hey, there's a problem. I need your help. Can you jump in, offer any ideas, or offer any support?" Here's my point. A lot of people have described HR as a cushy profession. We've had this conversation in other podcasts previously. It was in the book. I find it hilarious, and so does every other HR person on the planet. We know that HR is far from a cushy role. It is very, very difficult. You are caught between two worlds. You're caught between protecting the organization and trying to march to what your CEO is needing, what the board is requesting, all of those things. And if you're in a public company, what your investors are demanding of the organization. So that is very much a pull. And then on the other side, it's the pull of what are we doing for our employees? How are we advocating for them? How are we thinking about their experience in the workplace? And it's very tough and it can be exhausting. And if you are like me, if you're sort of a natural empath, it can be very, very demanding and trying on you on a psychological level. So let me tell you a little story. I have been in the profession for 30 years now, as you know. I am a well-known workaholic, and that is something that I have struggled with for a very, very long time. Like since I was a child, I just love to work. I genuinely love my job. I love being productive. I love participating, and I love being part of a team. And I can get lost in my work and not take care of myself enough or my needs. It's something I'm well aware of and something I'm constantly working on. And I'm sure that this is the same for a lot of you that are in the HR profession, because most of us go into the profession because we love people and we want to help and we want to make a great experience for them. The last 5 years or so have been absolutely mind-numbingly stressful for all of us in the world and everything that we've gone through with the pandemic and wars and economic challenges. And it just seems like the stress level has gone through the roof. Now, for me in particular, I'll tell you a little of my own story here. I was working, I had a very big CPO job at a wonderful company with an extremely supportive CEO who to this day, I just adore. Shout out Shashank Samant. You're just a fantastic CEO. Um, and it was this really great company that was growing, growing, growing. We pretty much doubled in size in the time that I was there in 3 years. It was an exciting opportunity. And then, I think it was about maybe 9 months into my tenure, we got hit with the pandemic. Now, none of us, there was no playbook for this. We had never been through something of this scale before. And I think in retrospect, the team that I was a part of, the executive team that I was a part of, we did the best that we could. And I think that we handled it quite well. We sat down, we said, what's the first most important thing? The people. Let's get the people to safety. Let's get them working from home and make sure that they have the things that they need to be productive and comfortable at the same time. And then we sat down and we started talking about, well, what is the economic impact going to be? Are we going to find ourselves in another recession? We were beholden to our board, and at the time we were owned by private equity. So we sat down and we came up with 5 different scenarios. It was a best case scenario, worst case scenario, and a few in between, right? Now, the good news is that this was a digital engineering services company, and we actually did quite well during the pandemic because a lot of organizations realized they needed to go digital. That's not the point. The point is we were making it up as we went along. And we had this wonderful head of marketing, shout out to Aria, who came out with the concept of the Global Logic Cafe. And this was a Zoom channel that we just created. We used it for all hands meetings. We used it for dance parties and yoga classes and everything and everything. And it was a way to create that connection for people while they were stuck at home. This way we could engage them and have a little bit of fun and lighten the mood. Now, all of you that went through, well, we all went through the pandemic, but as you were probably navigating this from your perspective, you were probably dealing with a lot of the same things. How do I keep employees engaged? How do I address their needs? And we were laser focused on those people. And then the tracking started, right? We started having to track deaths. And unfortunately, there were many, and it was devastating, right? I remember a time period there when we were getting 1 or 2 a week, and it was gut wrenching to go through that. But from where we were sitting in HR, we had to push down our own thoughts and feelings about that because we had to be there for the people, right? We had to keep going. We had to keep making sure that they were taken care of. There was never any time for us to look at ourselves and what do we need as part of this? What's that self-care that we need? Not to be warm and fuzzy, but seriously, you do need to take care of yourself. One leader is always reminding me, when you're on an airplane, you're supposed to put your mask on. When the pressure drops before you put mask on someone else, well, we forgot about that completely. Now, you'll remember as we moved into the pandemic, we really started to see this global mental health crisis because people were isolated, they were scared, they were confused, and the line between work and life was not just blurred, it was gone because you're at home and your home is your office, so you're available 24 hours a day. And that's when we started to see the Great Recession, right? As we really moved in, we got a little bit more built into this pandemic. And a lot of people would say, I'm working so hard. I'm going to go to this other company and see if I can have more work-life balance. What they found was that it was just as bad over there, right? Because we had adapted to this new reality, and the expectation that you're always available was unfortunately part of that. So now we've got this global mental health crisis that we're dealing with on top of the global recession where we're losing our great talent and we're scrambling to come up with ways to retain that talent. Now, for me, I had a situation over a period of a few weeks in 2022 where I lost 2 vice presidents. Neera was one of them because she went on to be a chief people officer, and I was thrilled for her. I was very, very happy for her. But at the same time, it meant on top of managing everything that we were still managing through the pandemic, that I had to do those 2 people's jobs in addition to my own. Now, then also what happened during this time period was the war broke out in Ukraine. And we had 7,500 people in Ukraine that we were terribly afraid for. So thankfully, the Ukrainian team had already done a tremendous amount of work to help and to prepare. So they were able to get all of our people to safer locations very quickly when the war broke out. I tried to do the best that I could to help and support them, but that was an additional piece added to the plate, is that worry. Oh my goodness, how are we going to take care of these people? What can we do? We were trying to get them relocated, repatriated to other countries and make sure that, their families were able to join them. And then, of course, they closed the borders and we weren't able to get a lot of the men over, and we continued to worry about them. And I remember phone calls, video calls with these people in Ukraine, and they were in subway stations and, basements of buildings because there was bombing going on up ahead. And I would see them and they would be exhausted because they had been up with bomb raids the night before. And it just kills you because there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is offer as much support as you can. So the third thing that happened during this time, actually, it overlapped the war in Ukraine, is that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Actually, I was diagnosed with breast cancer the day before I hopped on a plane to Poland to try and help the team over there make arrangements to get people to safety from Ukraine and to try and get as close to everything as possible to make sure that I could participate and help everybody out in the process. So we're dealing with all of these things all at once. And how do workaholics deal with these types of stressors in their lives? Well, you just say, okay, well, these are, 3 problems that I have and they all have solutions. So let's just figure out solutions and keep chugging. So, get on a plane, we go to Poland. Let's work with the team to, how can I support getting people into Poland and getting them, set up in housing? How can I support getting, the wheels moving on immigration from some of these other countries so that people can repatriate? What can we do to provide assistance to the team that is still in Ukraine, right? And then quickly, how do I backfill these 2 roles over here that I need to backfill with the 2 folks that left? And then in the middle, it's, oh yeah, we're going to schedule some surgery and we're going to schedule some radiation treatment. And I was the one that literally I would go to the office. I would say, I'll be right back in an hour, guys, pop out for a radiation treatment and come right back. Now, here's the good news is I'm perfectly healthy. I was very lucky. They caught it early. It was a stage 1 issue. It was throw you in the microwave and you're done. I'm very grateful that happened. What should have happened is I should have taken all of this as a sign that perhaps I needed a break, but I didn't. Instead, I kept going. And in the midst of this, by the way, our company was acquired by Hitachi. And so we were doing a large integration in the midst of all of this. So around this time, I was recruited to join the wonderful Nokia team. And I had a wonderful time working there, but I went straight from GlobalLogic into Nokia. And then it was a much bigger job. It was a lot of travel, a lot of work, a lot of activity. And I did not realize that I was burnt out for probably a good 2 years. And then all of a sudden I just burnt out and I was forced to stop. I had to take a break, and that is not something that I am comfortable with. Taking a break and really, reflecting on what do I need for myself. At that point in time, I'll just tell you that not only was I burnt out, exhausted, I was dragging my poor family all over. We moved to Finland, then we moved to New Jersey, and we were running. And even though it was wonderful, and I'm so grateful for that time, and I made some amazing friends, as we just saw on the panel last week, and I speak with them all the time, and it was such a wonderful experience overall. I was 100 pounds overweight. I was exhausted. I was dealing with high blood pressure. I was a mess, big ol' mess. And when I finally stopped, I slept for like a month. I just slept for a month, just took that pause, took that break. I started playing pickleball. I lost 40 pounds in like 2 months because just the cortisol levels dropped, right? You just let that stress go. And then I started to focus a little bit more on me. What do I want to do next? Do I want to take a break? Do I want to go, back into a big corporate job? This had been the pinnacle of my career. And I'm so grateful for it. But at the end of the day, it was me. I had failed to see how burnt out I was because I was focused on everybody else and trying to help out and trying to be everything for everybody, trying to be a mom, trying to be a wife, trying to be an executive and a compassionate person for my team and trying to do all the things. And the reality is we're human beings and you can't take on all of that. You have got to stop and put your own mask on before you can help other people. And it's hard, especially, I don't want to say it's especially hard for women. I only have the experience of being a woman, so I can only share that part of the experience with you. And I think a lot of women, we take on multiple roles. We've got to be a good mom. We've got to be a good wife. If you've got a job, you've got to be really good at that. You got to be extra good at that because let's be honest, there's bias in the workplace and there's expectations for women that aren't always there for men. But I can't tell you what the experience is as a man because I'm not a man. But I can imagine it must be just as hard in a different way because you are expected to be the strong man, right? And nothing gets you down and you can charge through this and you're a warrior. And that's kind of how we see men in society. It's got to be absolutely exhausting. I can only imagine to try and live up to that persona. You can't have a breakdown, right? You can't have those moments of vulnerability. And the sad thing is that in my career, I can honestly tell you that I have had more men crying in my office than women. And I'm grateful to those men that they had that trust in me, that they would share that vulnerable sides of themselves. But I just want to say, you know what? We're all human beings. We all have emotions. We all have things that we need to do. We're busy people, but at the end of the day, it really is true that you've got to put your own mask on, especially in HR because it'll suck you in, right? We get sucked into this world of taking care of everybody else. And if you don't take the time to take care of yourself, then you are going to burn out. And I'm seeing it happen all over the place. I'm part of this really wonderful organization for women called the Exceptional Women's Alliance. It's all female executives, and we're all, type A personalities, go, go, go. And the reason I love this organization so much, and this isn't a plug, although I'm sure Lorraine, shout out to you, is a little plug for EWA. But I think I never realized how much I needed an organization like this until I joined, because here's a group of ladies that they know what it's like to be me. They know what it's like to often be the only woman in the room with a board or with an executive team, whatever, and how you have to kind of put this mask on in order to fit in with the boys, in order to have that credibility with that team, and that your credibility is always on the line. Let's be honest, because there still is that bias in society. Now, I feel finally confident at this point in my career to tell you that I know my stuff. I know HR. I have been through the wars, literally. I've been through the challenges and all the different things, and wisdom has come out of that. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. None of us are, right? Do I have my flaws? Yes, but I have my strengths and my skills in certain places, and I've learned finally to align those with my needs, right? And what I really enjoy and what brings me joy. And so here I am 2 years later, after, reaching the big goal of being chief people officer at a really big, wonderful multinational company, and not finding the satisfaction that I was expecting. And again, it has nothing to do with that organization. It was a wonderful organization. I just never took the time to appreciate it when I had it. I never took the time to really experience the wonderful things, or to take inventory of what it was that I needed and what the organization needed and how we could align those. And here I am now I took a break, and my idea of a break is, I wrote 2 books and started 2 companies. So I've got an AI company, Big Band AI, and, Nira and I started HR Revolt, we were going to start it as a consulting practice, but it turned into really more of a movement, and this podcast and the books came out of this original thought. We just wanted to change the world of HR. We wanted to help people see that we are going through a revolution in this space. We're on the cusp of something new with AI, with where the world is going. We have an opportunity to really step up to the plate here and be true leaders in this whole process. And I think we are, or a lot of us hopefully are starting to have that impact and see that impact. We are partnering with heads of IT to bring AI into the workplace. We're trying to navigate the fear that comes along with the adoption of AI. We're trying to navigate this continuing global mental health crisis and help our employees through that, while also taking a look at ourselves and navigating that self-care. Now, I was really thinking about this recently because I took on a new client and I've been working with them. It's this wonderful organization. It's in a different sector. I've always been in tech, and now I'm in sort of the banking space. And it's a smaller company. It's very large in terms of overall assets, but it is a smaller in terms of the employee footprint. And the joy has come back. I have been able to work with this wonderful group, and they're so open to new ideas and new thoughts. And I'm finding that I just really needed to reflect on who I was. Burning out is not a failure. That was the biggest lesson here. And I want to really, if I can offer anything to any of you, it's that. If you burn out, it's not a failure. It's life telling you, slow down, stop. You don't need to be master of the universe, right? You can be you can go to a smaller organization if that makes you happy, if that brings you joy. And as I mentor women through EWA, this is something that I like to say to my mentees is what brings you joy? Do you enjoy speaking? I love speaking. So this is something I want to keep this podcast going. I want to keep doing this and bringing the message forward. But really, that's what it comes down to. You've got this one life. What brings you joy? Not what does the world expect of you? Not what things do others put on you and you feel like you have to solve their problems, their issues, or you have to try and help them. If that's something that brings you joy, great. But don't just focus on others. And you know what? At the end of the day, this is something I always tell my staff. It's just a job. This is just a job. This is not your whole life. I understand that your job is very much a part of your identity. Mine is hello, Amy HR, and I'm in HR. It is very much a part of my identity. I love what I do, love my job, and I'm so happy to be back in the mix and be participating and helping my clients with their HR teams and trying to build them and create a better, newer version of HR. And I just really wanted to share this story with all of you because it is really, really important to recognize the signs of burnout and how it can be, so devastating from a physical perspective. I mean, I'm convinced that burnout was what led to me getting diagnosed with cancer, and there is nobody to blame for that but me. I take that full responsibility, and I have found balance, and I'm focused on balancing between work and life and self-care. And again, not to be too warm and fuzzy, but this is really critical. And it's really critical for you in HR, whether you're a CPO, you're a comp analyst, a business partner, or you're a frontline administrator. It doesn't matter. This is a profession that has a very high rate of burnout. And so one of the things I really want to encourage any of you in the HR profession or in the executive world or just in work in general is to pay attention to that. Don't let yourself get to the point of burnout. That's why we have PTO programs, right? That's why we have vacation. You need to take that time to step back and breathe. And I have never, in 30 years, I have never gone on a vacation without bringing my laptop. And that is really sad. And I can tell you right now that the next vacation that I take, the laptop's staying at home because you've got to take that time. You really do. The human body is so vulnerable that it can break down so easily, and stress is one of the worst things that you can do to yourself. And please, if you're a CPO, I beg you to take the time and look at your staff and look for the signs of burnout. Look at who's scrambling and who's really burning the midnight oil, and do what you can to clear their plates. That's what we are here for. We are here to remove blockages for our team, to help them ruthlessly prioritize, and to make sure that they are having just as good of an experience as an employee as anyone else in the organization. The HR team doesn't get a pass from having fun just because we're HR. We're employees as well, right? And our experience matters just as much as anyone else. So it seems more like a little lecture, but I really felt it was important to share this because I do recognize that burnout is a very, very real phenomenon, and it can have very bad consequences for you from a health perspective. And so here I am, 100 pounds lighter, 2 years after stepping aside from the corporate world for a little while and trying a few other things. And I have found my joy again, and I'm so happy to be participating in the HR space. I'm grateful that that is the profession that life has chosen for me, and I get to help organizations and help employees. And it's such a wonderful privilege. And I hope that you can see that in your own profession. And if you don't, maybe it's time for you to take a break and take a step back. And if you are transitioning between one job and another, do not just start, like, quit one job on a Friday and start on Monday. You need that downtime. You need time to reset, right? To clear the decks and say, hey, I've got 2 weeks or a week, whatever you choose. I would encourage you to take a month if you can. Take the time and just breathe. I don't owe anybody anything. I don't have to respond to any emails. I don't have to go to any meetings. I can just breathe. It's important. It is critically important in any profession, but especially in this particular profession where we are the caregivers for the organization. So that's the big message that I wanted to share with you this week. I hope that resonates with a lot of you. If it doesn't, then you must be Superman or Superwoman, and bless your heart. So enjoy. And thank you again for joining us on this journey of Don't Talk to HR. We have one more episode that will be coming up soon with a dear friend, Sumit Sood from Global Logic, who's an absolutely fantastic business leader that both Nero and I are very much looking forward to having a conversation with. So I hope you enjoy that one. Thank you again for hanging in with us this season. We're wrapping up here pretty soon. But let us know if there's any topics that you'd like to hear about. We're going to start prepping for season 2 to hit maybe in the fall, and would love to hear anything that you would like to talk about and anybody you would recommend that we bring on the podcast. So just drop it in the comments and we'll do what we can for next season. And remember, do talk to HR.